one calling the shots. Guess who be running the show? Fuck with me though, making me feel like the bad guy.
Welcome back to Red Brain Design. So, got a new thing for you guys. We're gonna go over ignition dwell, coil dwell, the overall correction of setting up rotary engine. So, I've said for years, and I will continue saying this, ignition 1As are a good choice under, let's say, 8,000, 8,500 RPM. And beyond that, CDI is the correct choice for a rotary engine. And let me explain why that is, because this clearly has not made it to a mainstream understanding. And every time I look at this, it frustrates me because I keep seeing people not understand this value, or engines blow because of it, or something stupid. So there's a YouTuber who just did a post. His vehicle lasted for 5 dyno runs, and on a NA engine somehow grenaded itself. And I listened to the video a few times and I said, okay, well, we're clearly getting ignition breakup. You can hear it before the limiter. And here is an explanation of what happened, or what most likely happened, as I'm not physically there to see it, so I can't make those claims. First off, the ignition coils that I'm talking about here are ignition 1A, and what is likely on the vehicle is something like a truck coil, which is damn near the same guts, okay? Here is a data sheet from Lance of Pantera EFI. He's the designer of these coils. These were Mercury Marine and all sorts of stuff branched off of, okay? So we have 81 kilovolts, plus minus 10%. We have 250 millijoule, plus minus 7% at 8 millisecond dwell at 14 volts. The arc duration, this is the duration of spark that is going to be igniting. This is where these smart coils are a hindrance for rotary engines. 3.2 milliseconds plus or minus 10%. And this changes with our dwell target. So this value will change per our dwell target. So that means that dwell is our charge, and this right here is our duration of spark. So we add these two together, and that is our total duration that the coil is going to be needing to be charged and fired. Max continuous dwell, 9 milliseconds, and not to exceed 40% duty cycle. And then the one more critical for us is going to be 88% duty cycle for 9-second maximum. Now, this guy apparently ran this engine up to 9,500 RPM. And if you look at a rotary cycle period, which is 60 divided by RPM, 9,500 RPM would land us right between these two values. So let's say 6.3 milliseconds of total duration. That is the combustion event. The full event is 6.3 milliseconds. That means when you remove 3.2 milliseconds of spark duration, you're left with your overall what you can run for dwell. Okay, so for that one, it would come out to like 3.1, right? We're splitting the difference between these two. So 3.1 would be your maximum dwell at 100% duty cycle. You'd be making somewhere between, I would say, 45 and 50 millijoules of spark energy, which is plenty for an NA application. And if you're running it at 90% duty cycle, it's about 2.7 millisecond spark dwell. And if you have over that, what do you guys think happens? Well, the honest truth is the ignition overlaps into the next combustion event. And when you have these combustion events in such a short period of time, what will happen is the ignition event will overlap and misfire the next fuel cycle. So this is essentially the rotor barking back or kicking back onto itself and causing damage. So I'm very sorry that people don't understand this. I've had these published probably since RX-7 Club ages ago. So this is up. It's been up for a long time. And I think a nice way of putting it is I'm explaining it in the video. I say, after hearing your dyno pull on your Instagram, I'm wondering if the car had been losing crank signal because there's an audible miss at higher RPM. This would be seen by tailpipe puffs. So if you watch an exhaust, you can see when ignition is either too advanced or if there's any sort of breakup, you will always see it out the tailpipe first. Okay, so you always have someone eyeing that when you're getting close to the limits of MBT, maximum brake torque for an engine. And I asked if the cast setup was used on both setups that had the issues. Apparently there's another engine that failed at 7,000 RPM. This one, it went up to 9,500, and I gave the example as to where you would set your coil dwell to do that on a smart coil configuration that has a long duration spark. A CDI by variance would have maybe 0.2 or 0.3 milliseconds. So if we look at that, let's say we're at 10,000 RPM minus 0.2, you've got 5.8 milliseconds of duration. But a CDI doesn't care because it doesn't need to charge. It is always charging. So that's why a CDI can usually run up to 11,250, 12,500, or 15,000, depending on the CDI company. So anyways, he's explaining about there's a soft limiter, same CAS was used, and I say real clearly, sure as fuck sounds like ignition coil setup or CAS issues are causing some problem before the soft limiter. Sounds like ignition overlapping into the next, and I guess I didn't screenshot the whole thing, next combustion event. I asked how much total duration time does an engine need at 9,500 RPM, which is 6.3 milliseconds. And I always get the amazing kickbacks at the end of my favorite thing. I don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea what you're talking about. And when I'm trying to educate someone and they kind of like bark back or they do something that's not in their favor, I'm really trying to help people. It's problem solving and engineering and going through all this stuff in very fine, minute details is what I do. And if someone can take that the wrong way, in fact, enough to say you're the most arrogant person in the RX-7 community and have to interject your opinion into everything, this is instant karma as far as I'm concerned. So, trying to make sure that the educational base of what we are doing here together does not reflect poorly for the rest of the community. I want to always have as much data as I can give people to make their educated decisions on what they need to do for their car. Because you have your car for your reason, someone has their car for their reason. We all have our own individual needs that need met. You know, whether it's mountain driving, racetrack, drag strip, half mile, cruiser, autocross. Like, none of this is going to be the same from A to B. We all drive differently. We all have different needs. So all I can do is very simply inform you so you understand what the heck you might want to match to your needs. And I'll say, this power band's good for this type of usage, or choose this turbo if you want to do this sort of action. Or, of course, in this case, if you want to go to 9,500 RPM, you should have already been thinking about CDI. Or, because you're in A, you don't need to have spark duration very high because there's not much combustion pressure. You could have run that thing at 2 milliseconds and it would have been fine. 2 milliseconds would have gotten us down to right around 65-70% duration of coil dwell. So, some people, they don't help the helpless, or rather, there's a better way of putting this. If someone's unwilling to learn, and they're unwilling to put in effort about their education, do not waste their time. Do not waste time helping them. It's that simple. But hopefully, overall, this helped you guys. This will be a link in the description, or I probably have the same RX-7 Club page up ages ago. You're welcome to use that. I did it for a bunch of different coils. These are all modeled. These are pretty much covering just about everything. And the thing about a rotary, which I'm sure now you're seeing this and you're saying, what the heck? 60 over RPM. Well, we go to a Ignition 1A on a V8, and it's twice the duration of usage. So now instead of 6 at 10,000, we have 12. Okay, so they can run this thing out to 7 milliseconds at 10,000 RPM. That's a ton of overhead. So we have half that. And less. Actually less. So, because of this being the 3.2, that's a standard for the smart coil. So hopefully that helps. Obviously the guy that it won't help him, he's already blown up. He's done. He's going to LS swap. He's a little salty man. Let him do his thing. But this should be something that's informative to help you guys out. So we'll go over more stuff like this, more diagnostic, more complete configuration and setup as needed. Feel free to drop in the comments what you guys need help with. And yeah, I've got some cool collaborations coming up, and hopefully whatever harder questions that you're being faced with, or configuration, setup, where to best use your budget, all that stuff can be covered in the next few months. All right, that's it for this one. Cheers, guys.
I know I'm calling the shots. Guess who'll be running the show? Fuck with me though, making me feel like the bad guy.